All right. Thanks everyone for joining us. This is the first of our ballot reconciliation meetings, really, which is what we're going to be doing for the next sort of 6 to 7 weeks. So I'm going to really kick off into the agenda, which will start with our usual business and a little bit of ballot update. We want to move through that pretty quickly into talking about the ballot reconciliation process itself and give a bit of an overview on that. There's a lot of HL7 material available on Confluence, but we just want to bring in some of those major points. Then we've got 2 block votes scheduled for this meeting, and we'll go through those 2 and then talk about the next sort of block votes, what's coming up over the next week or so. So I'll go into our usual business, even though that slide is titled Previous Meeting Outcomes, it is meant to be a usual business slide, which is approval of our previous minutes. And I'll just say, is there anyone who's still reviewing those or wanted a bit more time? Okay, I'm not hearing anything from people, so I'll ask if someone's happy to motion to approve those minutes.
I'm happy to motion to approve minutes.
Thanks, Michael. Is someone happy to second that?
I will second that.
Thanks, Stephen. Okay, I'll go ahead and launch our meeting poll for approval of the minutes. Okay, you should be seeing that now. If you can go through and select your vote, including if you didn't attend that meeting or don't feel confident in voting, please select abstain. All right, lots of people coming through voting. Just a few more to go now. Okay, fantastic. I'm going to end that poll now. Thank you. Share the results, and that motion has passed. The minutes are approved. Okay, I'll stop sharing. So we do have some actions from previous meetings, but we're going to defer discussing those to the next meeting so that we can move on into the business of today, ballot. So a bit of an update again, just especially for those who weren't able to make it to our previous meeting. So the ballot period is closed. All the votes and issues are in now. The ballot period itself was delayed an extra week due to technical issues. So the ballot resolution period's also been pushed to starting a week later, which is this week. And that means that we are now ready to go in and do some ballot reconciliation activities. I've got a few more updates there to just give you now that we've gone through and titled those. Based on the technical issues, HL7AU had asked us to consider any issue raised in the ballot period within the whole scope of what we should look at. And we've done that. So that gives us in total 199 issues within the ballot period that we need to look at. We got pretty good response, I think. Those issues were raised by 22 different people coming from 11 different organisations. And in terms of voting, we had 35 individuals who were able to cast their vote from 14 different organisations. And of course, we know that there were a number of people who weren't able to cast their vote. And HL7AU is still working through how do we prevent that in future, but I'm quite confident that that's going to be resolved. So I'll just move on from that one and into the ballot reconciliation process. And I'll just check if Brett's on the line, and if not, Stephen, that would be fantastic if you could talk to this.
Sure.
I have.
Oh, Brett actually is here?
I have just made it.
All right. Cool.
Hello. Cool. Yeah. So this will be brief.
I've got
Yep. So
just to confirm for you, Brett, there's obviously this slide, but there's also, depending on if you want to speak to those, this slide,
cool.
this one,
Process.
and that one, and a block vote one.
Yeah, cool. Excellent. Yep. So so this is, I guess, just a bit of an overview on what reconciliation is, and what we do as part of this process. We've had this opportunity to sort of raise our issues and vote on them, and put our position against all those as part of the voting cycle. So now that that's closed, we need to, as a group, be able to address all of those issues, and actually work through that process, and come to some consensus position on all of that. So notably, there's the differences between the types of ballot that are run. There's for comment voting, there's STU, which is standard for trial use voting, and normative voting, which is essentially a full standard level. The requirements around addressing issues for the different levels are a little different. Danielle, remind me. I think for comment, it's not necessary to resolve all the issues for a comment ballot, but they are something that needs to be worked through as part of the continuing development of the standard. For STU and normative votes, essentially they're release versions of the standard. So it requires essentially a resolution to be found for every issue, and then that is reconciled as a group as to being the final position, and the changes can be made. Stephen, did you want to say something?
Yeah, so not necessary, or even for SDU and normative ballot, we might not necessarily always be able to resolve all the comments, but there must be some comment disposition agreement. So that's the difference. So because some of the negative comments, we might not be able to reach some kind of
final
final decision.
I think that's a fair point, because some things are like, yes, that's a good point, but we that's a whole new area. We need to bring that through a process, or things like that you can put off, as you may not need to deal with them for the current level of the standards work. So that's definitely something that the groups can agree to essentially defer that to the future, or handle it in different ways. So the idea is, though, that you reach some consensus position as a group, and are happy to live with the outcome of that. So as part of this process too, essentially the co-chairs are the primary receivers of these issues after the ballot's closed. So these issues land in the co-chair's lap. So it does require the co-chairs to essentially go through a process of looking at all those issues, triaging them, deciding if things are in scope for the standard that you're working with, or they need to be moved off to another committee. Especially for AU Core, that there's definitely cases where the underlying issues are actually part of the AU base IG, which is a dependency, and that means effectively that becomes the fire work group's concern as to address those issues. And there's also even the cases where the underlying issues may belong to the may belong to the fire specification itself, and that's when the relevant committees at the international level, it may be their responsibility to address some of those issues. So the co-chairs really kind of look at that, work out where everything, where everything lives, and can handle those things. There are requests for change that are kind of almost trivial, where you've got typos and grammar fixes or incomplete sentences or punctuation where which are not really affecting the meaning or understanding of the content, but are corrections. They get categorized as technical corrections and can effectively be summarily made in the system because they're not really affecting the meaning in any way. And then we've got some more things to do. Thank you, Danielle. There's some classifications. So we happily can say this is actually a change request. So it's worth noting, you would have we sort of went through the voting. It's important to sort of note when change requests are raised, you have the option of voting negative on them, which is more serious issue, and or affirmative, and those affirmative votes are welcomed. Generally, they're things that you think should be changed, but wouldn't affect your consideration in actually releasing the standard. So if there might be improvements or suggestions or things that are useful to enhance the content. Whereas a negative vote would be really something you believe needs to be changed before you would really accept the standard to be released. So I think it's as we go through this process, I think people should be really thinking about what they're making as a suggestion or an issue, which category that lies in, because then effectively using negative voting is a way to really indicate that you have an issue with it as the content. Yeah,
qualify for this group though that affirmative negative statement applied to when people were voting in the ballot period. Yeah. That's already closed. That's not about reconciliation.
Yeah, that's true. And categories wise, technical correction, that's what I talked about before. So basically things like typos and things fall in that category. So effectively the co-chairs can decide, yes, we should fix all these typos and grammar check issues, and that's good. There's also the possibility of questions. Questions don't have any effect on the content as such, but we like to respond if possible, to be able to enhance understanding on it. Really, as much as possible, try and avoid raising questions on ballots, because there's other channels for that. In terms of engaging with people before ballot happens. Comments are also something that can certainly be provided as well, which is more just commentary. Stephen, did you want to add to?
Yes, so Daniel, if you can go 2 slides back. Yes, so here I just want to make a point about voters' responsibilities. Members might or might not be aware that when you vote, you will have the option of requesting that you want the issues to be resolved in person. That means that you want to be present in the discussions of the resolution. And if you do make that kind of a statement that you want the issues that you raise to be resolved in person, then the co-chairs or project lead's responsibility is to ping you to alert you that at such a time the issue that you raise will be discussed. Can you be there, since that you request the issues to be resolved in person?
Yeah, I think that's a good one. Yeah, that's a good point, Steve. Because if you don't select that option, primarily the working groups and TDG will make decisions on those issues. so if you really want to be involved in the discussion or be there when those discussions happen, yeah, that's really important to select that option, so that co-chairs know that you really want to be present, and they will, you know, best efforts try and arrange that to happen, so so that you can actually be involved in that discussion. So yeah, so again, that's another kind of indication probably of the seriousness of the issue to the person involved, or might indicate some complexity there that they want to express. So yeah, so these are all kind of tools that can be used to help as a voter to try and get your issue heard in an appropriate way. Cool. That's good. We're going to talk about block votes. I think that's probably enough for that slide. Danielle, unless you have anything to add?
Well, I do a bit. So talking about reconciliation rather than voting during ballot, which is closed. So as you've pointed out, so it falls in the co-chair's lap basically to triage these 199 issues basically, and try to go through them and can confirm, are they in scope, are they out of scope, are they real issues, were there any duplicates, are there any concerns on that, and then to package those up and organize for the technical design group to go through and reconcile those ballot comments. And it is the co-chair's responsibility to prepare like a preliminary reconciliation package, essentially a proposed disposition on what those should be, with the actual comment on why, according to this, on what should be changed or shouldn't be changed or so forth, to provide that to the technical design group to consider. And it is, of course, yes, again, the co-chair's responsibility to look at who voted on those in the ballot and ensure that they are kept informed on where their issue is going to be discussed or voted upon, so that they are aware of it.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, so, and so obviously there's some pathways there where, you know, when the co-chairs have sort of detected duplications of issues, it may be your issue is marked as a duplicate, and essentially there'll be a reference to a equivalent issue that's been logged. So when that happens, the voter can have the opportunity to withdraw that vote, because they can say, oh, I effectively see the TDG has, other co-chairs have my issue concept completely understood, and they are going to deal with that. So therefore my specific issue and vote can be withdrawn, because I know that will be addressed. That can also be wait till after discussion or after voting as well. So that's just something that the voter can do. And the voter can also retract the vote themselves, which means that they effectively you can look at your own issue and go, oh, I looked at it and I think, you know, with whatever understanding I've gained since then, I don't think that's really an issue and I want to retract it. So it's so that effectively just becomes an affirmative position on that issue, and you move along. So there's these other dispositions that can be reached by the co-chairs. So effectively there's kind of consider for future use, pushing out to the future, a persuasive position, which means yes, we agree entirely with your issue, and we'll probably make the changes as proposed. Persuasive with modification, which means we want it, yes, we agree in principle, and we want to make a amendment to that, but we agree with your issue, and we'll try and deal with it as you have requested. Not persuasive, which means we think there's some problem with the issue that's been raised, or there's a reasoning behind not accepting that, and that needs, yeah, so that obviously then the voter will need to look at that and why that position is being taken by the group, or non-persuasive with mod. so that means we're
I'm
not
actually
going to
not
really,
sure this is
yeah,
possible.
yeah,
I accidentally kept it in the table. Apologies. That isn't possible for us in Jira to set. So ignore that not possible persuasive with
yeah,
mod. It's
yeah,
just not persuasive.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I think effectively, if you're taking up part of the solution, you're somewhat persuasive. So it's yeah, I think yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
So
sorry, just want to say that for non-persuasive report, it was available in the older sort of voting system. That as one of the disposition, there are some non-persuasive, some issues that we decide that has been decided as not persuasive, and yet there are merits in some changes. So that's that thing that sort of comes about and. I'm not sure that in the absence of not persuasive, how do we deal with that kind of not
I
non
believe that therefore has to fall under
yeah,
persuasive with
persuasive mod,
modification. I
yeah,
believe that what will come to the technical design group in these meetings is only these top 4 rows. So where we are asked to consider for future use, where we think this is meaningful, we're not going to say this is not that it's not persuasive, but it isn't to be resolved in this release. Then we have persuasive or persuasive with modification, where we believe a change related to this should be made. And then we have non-persuasive, where no change will be made to the specification based on the, I guess, the argument put forth in that ballot comment. And those will be the set of things that come to this technical design group through the issues to determine what we do with them.
yeah,
Which will
yeah.
come
So
through
it's
largely this
blocks. Yep,
format.
yep.
Ruben, you've raised your hand.
Yeah, just seeing as we moving off that topic, I wanted to check if we have any rules around a participant wanting to reopen an issue that had been voted on.
I believe the HL7AU has the standard decision-making rule about reopening decisions where a decision has already been made. I think those apply.
HL7 international certainly does. So what happened is that the issue that needs to be reopened will be notified by email ahead of time, and then there will be at a conference call. There will be those reopened issues will be discussed and voted on, and if the majority agrees for it to be open, then it will be open.
Okay, yeah, and I think we would not deviate from the international processes in any way. So
Correct. So that's quite relevant. So if a decision has already been made in a previous technical design group, whether that is previous to now, or if we vote on something, for example, in this ballot reconciliation, and it is re-raised during the August ballot, then that has to come to the group to first make a decision on if that should be reopened. Yes. Richard, your hand's raised.
Yeah.
The international groups will sometimes use Zulip as a way of giving a week or so's notice that there's going to be a discussion on the reopening, not just email.
Cool.
Okay.
So in workgroups I participate in at international, Jira actually has the reopen button, and it has not a warning, but a very stern note, I guess. And I seem to recall that it says something about a 2/3 majority, but I'm not sure even if patient care has that in Jira as well.
We just need to time box this, guys. We've got 3 more minutes to go through process
no worries.
before we get to reconciliation.
Yeah,
thanks,
that's
Daniel.
good. Yeah, so I think primarily too, like as a part of getting through these issues in a reasonable time frame, we do block these issues together, which is a set of issues that have a common kind of issue. So it might be a whole bunch of rewording issues or a whole bunch of typographical issues, and we can certainly put them together. And the idea is here that you can, as a block, decide to confirm or go against that. or refer to a telecon if you think really more discussion is needed for them. The idea here is that we can kind of block those into groups of issues that we can resolve quickly. The idea is that we can hopefully make these are probably the less controversial ones. We can kind of all usually either agree, positively or negatively that that's a well-held position by the group. So yeah, it is a way to sort of break it up into larger chunks and be able to sort of dispose of a number of things all at once.
Thanks, Brett.
Yeah.
So a part of what we've also got here in the e-vote bit was the refer to telecom, where we have refer to telecom and negative. When you do that, so when a block vote comes out, because the majority of these will first be put out by e-vote, because we had an incredible amount of participation, which was fantastic. We're taking this triage view of blocking things together and putting them out for the technical design group in an asynchronous manner, and using the e-votes for where the group is able to approve this block, and also therefore use the technical design group members to flag where they think that this actually needs further discussion before it can be approved. And so if you're going to do that, please select refer to telecom, and you do need to provide a comment. If you don't have a comment which is explaining that, that's actually going to be taken as abstain. And please come to that call then, the next call that's scheduled for that block vote, to be able to talk through that for the group so that we can actually then work through these.
Yeah, please be, like we need really explicit, specific issues, if you're going to refer the block votes, because we want to be able to, actually address them quickly, and if we need to actually find out where the issue is, that slows things down too. Cool.
Richard?
Who are candidates to vote? Are they members of the working group, or are they people who were signed up to do the voting?
On technical design group reconciliation, it's the technical design group.
Thank you.
So the ballot was open to give us a set of commentary of comments on which we need to go through and reconcile, and it is the technical design group that will go through and reconcile that. And first up is the co-chairs who go through and triage those to identify, as we talked about before, what's a duplicate, what is out of scope. So this is kind of where we're up to, giving you an update. So out of 199, 86 have been triaged so far. So we're at about the 43% mark, which is pretty good, I think. We've had a number of long calls on that. And out of those, we've only found 9 duplicates. 8 of them are technical corrections, so they are approved, but they are things like you missed a comma right here, very obvious. 2, that's been cut off from an image, apologies. So there were 2 that are considered no comment, they're incomplete. Essentially, 2 people raised issues that were just called test and had no body. So they're not considered to be issues that we need to do anything with. 12 of them are out of scope, so 6 have been passed to AU base, and the firework group co-chairs have accepted those as the 6 for AU base, and 6 are considered to be against the fire standard, and there'll be comms coming out to the people who raised them on that. 2 that got raised have already been retracted, as in the people who raised them have contacted us either via email or in the issue itself, in this case, the issue itself, to say that they want to retract this, they raised it in error, basically. And so we've already triaged 53 into different block votes for reconciliation. 2 are this week, and we're going to keep going through that. So there's 113 issues to be triaged, and we expect that most of these need to come through this group for reconciliation, because the first pass the co-chairs did was going hunting for the easy to kick out, the out of scope, the duplicates, the incomplete issues. So we think these 113 are still going to need to come through it, which puts us at about 166 issues that over the next 6 weeks, we're going to need to form a position on. So let's talk about that. This is why we're using block votes. So we're going to trial weekly block votes, weekly e-votes. They're going to be open on a Thursday. So there's one that's going to come out at the end of this call and close the following Wednesday. We'll send that out via email, and there'll be a reminder on the morning of, similar to what we did this morning. And the results are scheduled for the next TDG meeting. And I guess that also means that if you want to select refer to telecom because you think this has to be discussed, then that is the TDG meeting that those will be that set of issues will be discussed during. So let's talk about our meetings coming up then and how we're apportioning these. So this is what we had scheduled for our next set of meetings coming up through to what we'd said in the 16th of May, which is our face-to-face, would be the final ballot meeting. That's in the Sydney. Again, we're aiming for hybrid, but virtual. And so we've got today, then there's Conformance Friday. In fact, I'll just move on to this one on how we're blocking this out. So today we've got 2 block votes, and that deals with 18 issues. And then we're working through Conformance Friday, which is really, I think, starting to work through positions on addressing the ballot comments related to must, support and obligation, which are all, I think, really highly related, which is great. And we're starting to really get some progress going in our Conformance Fridays. And then we've got our next ballot resolution meeting in a fortnight. And so we'll get through 2 weekly sets there, and we're aiming to go through, we're going to put out to you AU Core block votes 3 to 8. I'm hoping to have around 40 issues in that. And then we'll start putting in, instead of Conformance Friday here, use that for ballot resolution. Then we have our next fortnightly here, continue to go through ballot resolution and into our face-to-face to spend that day going through the content. Now, that being said, you might realise that all these numbers do not add up to 166. So depending on our progress, I think we may look to use, coming after that face-to-face, what we've got in our schedule for the 24th of May and the 30th of May, if we need to continue. So that's kind of the overall. Sorry, did someone have a question?
Yeah, sorry. Just want to sort of raise a question, or well, before that, I make a comment. Given the volume of the issues to be resolved, the timeline is actually very tight. Sort of going forward to the next ballot, which is planned for August. In the case of not able to resolve all those issues and commenters withdrawing those negative votes, what is our position? Internationally, we can't progress. I mean, the international rule is that you can't progress to the next ballot until you have resolved everything. So if we can't resolve everything sort of before August, the next ballot, so what is our position?
Because it's a ballot for comment, there's no pass or fail here. So we are from a governance position completely able to move into the August ballot. If this group feels that we have, I think, resolved the major issues and it's an appropriate baseline to take to ballot, and that won't just be the things raised out of ballot for comment, but the things that we identify as necessary changes or improvements along the way.
I understand that. The reason why I raised the question is that if I am a commenter and I raise a significant negative issues for it to be addressed and for change to be made, and I come to the next ballot, although this is a for comment ballot, if we run out of time and cannot resolve those issues, open it up for another ballot would mean that people would have to look at those things and may not necessarily be aware that they haven't been addressed and say that, well, I raised a comment and why is this issue still here? So, and that's the reason why I'm raising this question as to what should the position be if we are not able to resolve all those comments.
If we are unable to get as a technical design group, form a position on what we think the baseline should be for ballot, which is essentially the reconciliation of those issues or any other positions, then yes, we can talk about that. I don't really want to talk about it in this particular ballot reconciliation meeting because we've only got 20 minutes left to go through 2 votes, but I am happy to table that and for us to have a governance discussion about it. Yeah.
I think we should.
Right. Sounds good. And that should also be discussed at the fire work group as well, who provides the governance for this group to have a position on that. All right, I'll take an action to ensure that we table this topic to go through and discuss that governance with this group in a future meeting. So, oh, no problems. I wanted to highlight for people here then that face-to-face meeting, there is registration for this. It is part of the usual 2-day sparked event where the May 15th is the clinical design group, and they're going through program review and also talking about AUCDI R2 as a scoping workshop. And day 2 is a ballot resolution, continuing that, doing a whole face-to-face on that. Now, I will caution, we want to do hybrid and we want to get this right, but I can't promise that we won't have some technical difficulties. So it would be great if you could be there in person. But we do absolutely plan to hold this as a proper hybrid. So I think the link's just been popped into the chat to the Eventbrite. So if you're going to come, please register for that. That registration is for both people who are going to attend virtually, as well as people who are going to attend face-to-face. All right, let's move off that and go into the block votes. So first one is block vote 1. And voting for this closed at the beginning of this meeting. And this block vote 1, which was put out, is for the, and I'll click here, was for a set of the, that might be too small, being bigger, for the editorial non-substantive things like punctuation, grammar, you missed a word, you have otherwise maybe italics. So these were put together with the proposed resolutions. Voting has taken place. Other people have already added their content. Great. And there was one comment who voted affirmative, and I've responded to that and will follow up with them. They have proposed an additional suggestion that I think is non-editorial, but I'm taking the action to follow up with that individual outside of this meeting to make sure we incorporate their comment into AU Core and bring that through this technical design group. So this was our first one. This was hopefully the easy one on going through this content. There have been some instructions on how to participate in the e-vote, which came out. And I'm just going to walk through these briefly now for people if you haven't had a chance to look at this. So when you go to this page, there will be this widget from Jira that'll say these are the issues that are included in this block vote. And it'll also list the reporter and what the resolution is intended to be. What we just sort of walked through on persuasive or persuasive with modification is what is in this set. So if you click on one of these issues, and you should, when you're going to vote on these, go through each of the issues and review the issue itself that was raised in the issue description. And then have a look at the proposed resolution. So here's the proposed resolution description, which accepts that and states what the change would be to AU Core. And you should be going through those for all the issues, because the intention here with a block vote is to consider these as a set. And when you make your vote, you are accepting, when you do affirmative, that we will make the changes to AU base or not for each of those issues as described. I will point out here that as we open these out, what we want people to do is, if you think an issue doesn't actually belong here in the block, and that's often the case because you might think that 25 of these you agree with, this 26th one you don't agree with, and here's why. Please comment at the bottom of the page. This will be monitored by the co-chairs to make sure that we have the right block together so we can move through reconciliation and decision making from AU Core. So I'll go back to the screen here. So our block vote 1 has passed. That's been successful. Thank you very much. Are there any questions or any comments that people want to talk about block vote 1 before we go into block vote 2, which is intended to be something we go through in this call? Okay. Sorry? No, we'll move on to block vote 2. The reason we've put block vote 2 as not an e-vote was because this is the first time we're doing block votes. We wanted to present the two kinds of ways we might progress this within a technical design group meeting. One is the asynchronous electronic votes, and the other is that sometimes that we will have votes that might be undertaken in a phone call or a telecom. This is the only reason that this block vote number 2 wasn't put to an electronic vote, was simply to do a bit of a walkthrough for our first reconciliation meeting. So I'm just going to go to that now.
Daniel, sorry, before we move on to the other mode, I have a questions about electronic vote. So in the electronic vote, if a voter wants to request certain votes to be, certain items to be pulled to a conference call discussion, what is the mechanism?
The mechanism is to vote refer to telecom, and which means one or more items need to be discussed at the next telecom, and you need to provide a comment that says which one it does and why.
Okay, thanks. Sorry if I hadn't paid attention to that. I was sort of distracted, so you might have mentioned that I have not paid attention to. Thank you. Yeah, no problem. It's great to reconfirm that and just make that clear that that's available here, and we're not trying to, I guess. Oh, Richard, your hands up.
When you say a comment, do you mean a comment in the block voting table or a comment at the bottom of the page?
I mean that when you choose to raise comments, and so there are instructions here on how to raise a comment. And so you use that little icon in the comment section to add a comment to the vote.
Okay, it's a comment in the table, certainly.
Yep.
Thank you.
So one would click on this here and you would type in what your comment is, and you would indicate which JIRA item this is against and why you think that needs to be referred to telecom. Also, if you're that would be true if you're choosing to vote negative, instead of refer to telecom, you would select negative, and then you would type in your comment here on whether you're voting negative on the whole block or whether you're voting negative on just one issue and why. I will say that while this is open, you can change your vote. So I can untick affirmative, or I can tick something else, which I'll do briefly. It's only after we close the vote that this voting widget will be edited so that votes are no longer changeable. So I'll go do that after the meeting since this vote is closed. So let's pop onto AU Core Block 2. So this one, I hope people have gone through and read it, is about removing must support from recorder and asserter from AU core profiles. So that is allergy intolerance recorder, allergy intolerance asserter, condition recorder, condition asserter, and procedure recorder and asserter. But I'm just noting here that this change was already approved by the technical design group. It's simply included in this block because when one of the issues raised talked about all those profiles. So we've already actioned and made the decision in the technical design group to remove must support from AU core procedure for asserter and recorder. And from the commentary and voting out of this ballot that's been raised for this group, to remove them from condition, AU core condition profile, and the AU core allergy intolerance profile. I don't think this needs further talking through at this point for this group. So I'm going to open this up to questions or comments on this block vote. Okay, I'm not hearing anyone that, oh, Ruben?
Yeah, look, because I've been on leave, I haven't been close to any of the discussions around my support and what all the feedback was. But I do know that I and perhaps at least one other party were calling for some changes around must support and introduction of obligations. So I'm wondering, should we not perhaps only deal with must support issues once we've landed the broader approach with must support and obligations?
Personally, I don't agree, because I think with any definition of must support, my vote would be the same. So I suppose that only depends on whether you think that your decision would change based on what you think that obligation has to be, noting that the obligation right now is defined. Sorry, Brett, your hand is up.
Oh yeah, I was just going to add to that. Yeah, I think because really this is moving these elements to being we are not going to they are not of interest to us in R1 at this stage, right? So and it's basically, I think we're going to make no statement about these elements in R1, and that by removing must support, that's what we're doing. So yeah, I think that's, yeah, regardless of which obligation you wanted to put on it, I think we're saying we want to take it out from any obligations at this point. Yeah.
So just to respond to what Danielle just said, I think what you said is okay if your interpretation of must support in these tracker items is the same as having one or more obligations. If what you're deciding is that, then I'm okay with the approach.
Yes, that is. Must support is a flag only to provide obligations to apply obligations. That is essentially what we're doing. We're saying, let's remove the must support flag from these elements, because they are elements we don't intend to apply obligations on in R1. Okay. Thank you for describing that, Brett, and clarifying, Ruben.
Sure.
Are there any other questions or comments on this? Okay, is someone happy to motion to approve this block vote?
I'm happy to motion.
Thanks, Marvin. Is someone happy to second?
I'll second, Richard.
Thanks, Richard. I would launch the poll, but apparently someone has taken over host of this meeting for someone else who joined. If that was you, don't suppose you could launch the poll? Let me find out who that is. No. Okay, we'll do it the old-fashioned way.
It's up. It's up.
Sorry, it was me.
Okay, thanks, Marvin. And Marvin, you'll have to do the talking through this one, because as a host, I can't see any of this.
Yeah, we're getting 67%. So we've just got a little bit more to go. If a few more people can add, we're probably just around 10 people left.
That's great. And again,
So-
if you are unfamiliar with this or uncomfortable, please select abstain.
Procedural question, or maybe it's infrastructural. I'm not sure if it's because I'm a co-host, but I don't have any buttons to vote. Is that
Yeah, it's because
expected?
you're a co-host.
I will undo that. Apologies. I will undo co-host, remove co-host permissions. Do you now have the opportunity to vote?
I
David?
do, and I have.
Great. I will remove that from the others. I thought that only applied to the host.
We learn every day.
We do. And I will take that off. Okay, well, there's no other co-host, but unfortunately, Marvin, you have to stay on because you're managing the poll. Do you
No,
want to
that's all good.
verbally cast your vote or just put it in the chat, either way?
I'm a positive. I'm an affirmative.
Okay, so you're an affirmative.
So we're pretty close, and I think we could end the poll now. So we've got
Okay,
a 34% abstain and 66 affirmative, no negative.
if you put stop, there should be the option to share so that you can click on share results.
There you go. Can you see them?
We can.
What were the actual numbers there for the minutes?
They'll be captured in the minutes. I know you can't see them because you're no longer a co-host.
It says
I'll
100% answered.
So
I'll export that into the minutes.
23 affirmative, 12 abstain.
Noting an additional from you, Marvin, and I think we should count Heath's statement here that he'd like to vote affirmative on this block vote. Okay, so that has passed. If you could stop sharing that, Marvin. Okay. Let's talk about, because we're now down to the last 5 minutes of the meeting, and I think this might be our first meeting we've been on time for quite a while. Okay, so our next set of block votes that are coming out to the group to have a look at. So going through that attempted a weekly process, next block votes, I'll send those as soon as this meeting's closed for block votes 3, 4, and 5. We've got a grouping of elements, which block vote 3 is removing must support from the performer element in AU core profiles. Block vote 4, we've grouped up all the ballot comments that are asking to remove must support from the encounter element in AU core profiles. And then block vote 5, continuing the trend of removing must support, is some specific items in AU core location, AU core practitioner, AU core practitioner role, AU core patient, and AU core organisation. Now, the results of this block vote are scheduled for our next fortnightly on the 2nd of May. And again, if you look through this and you think an item should be removed from the block vote, comment at the bottom of the page. If you think we should need to actually talk about it, hit refer to telecom, say which issue, or if it's the whole group, and say why you think we need to talk about the next group, and then come to that 2nd of May so that you can talk to it. And so that's the period these will be open. And then we'll go for block vote 6, 7, and 8. The co-chairs are just getting a set together now to provide for you. So that is what we're going to be doing between now and the 2nd of May call. Noting, of course, we have Conformance Fridays where we are talking through must support and obligation. And that is in reference, I think, to a number of the ballot comments, which continue the interest around obligations, defining and making those much clearer. So please join us on Conformance Fridays if you are interested in working through that and forming a proposal for the group. Wow, we're a little bit early. That's amazing. Any questions or comments before we would close?
Yep.
Congratulations.
Yes. Just wanted to circle back to the reopening of issues. Danielle, I did post in the chat what the international policy on this is, and Stephen's absolutely right. It does require adhering to rules around revisiting decisions in general, which usually means advance notice, and a 2/3 majority vote in favor of revisiting being generally required. So I've put that in the chat. So if we can just confirm that's our policy as well, then we're all set.
That is our requirement in HL7AU. That is in the HL7AU governance documentation on decision making. So it's the same. I think that's just been inherited.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great.
Variations, if there's any localizations, we've stated those explicitly, and otherwise we're following the regular decision-making processes. Yep.
Yep. So the co-chairs will have to, because there are a couple of issues that are raised that are of that nature, that we will need to, again, as part of our triage, we've already identified a couple, start to get that ready. And that's another thing that will come to the technical design group over the next few weeks to make that decision on if we revisit them. Yeah. All right. Unless there are any other comments or questions, I think we can close that there.
All right,
Thanks,
with
everyone.
1 minute to spare.
Excellent. Well done.
Thanks,
Exactly.
Delia.
We got
Thank
through
you.
18.
Seconds to
Yeah.
spare. Well done.
That's awesome. Okay.
Bye,
Thanks,
all.
guys.
Thanks,
Bye.